Hey, yeah, what's up? This disciple Marcello Kearns Rain back up in this anti-Illuminati all day, anti-America all day. So this message is basically about the Fields Negro is unsubmitted to the African American culture and American community and the American community. So the Field Negro is unsubmitted to the African American culture and community and the American community at large. Now I know you'll say, "How well the Field Negro should be leading the African American community, being a good example and leading them to greener pastures." But unfortunately, they will not depart from their wicked ways. They would not depart from their evil ways. They would not depart from killing each other. So how can the Field Negro, be a part of that when part of him is to preserve the lives of other black people? See, that's the part you leave out. You try to paint the Field Negro as just reckless, ratchet, all about black people, keeping it 100. But you also forget the Field Negro preserves lives of black people. He preserves black thought. He or she preserves black everything that's wholesome, that's good, and that's righteous. It's not just the ratchet one that's just wild and out of control. That's the Field Negro. Nah, you're still a house Negro because you're submitted to the American government and you're submitted to the African American community culture, which is detrimental to the African experience. The African American culture, what is it good for? I'm talking about the whole thing. I'm not talking about these little pockets of good things that happen here and there, these little programs that you got going. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the whole thing, the most part of it. How is it beneficial to the African American? The African American culture is full of gang banging, killing and shooting and drugs, all in the music, all in the entertainment. Explain how that is good for black identity, African identity, and how is it good of teaching of African lives? How is it good? It's not. And it used to be the African American culture in the times of past, in the 1960s and the 1970s, was fighting back against white America. The African American culture now is not fighting against white America. It is joining white America and leaving off the real problems, not solving the real problems any longer, but joining forces with other communities, but not fighting like the 1960 African culture, and not fighting like the 1970s African American culture. So now we can no longer go with that because hip hop has taken over it, which is full of which teaches to kill and to give drugs out and everything like that. That has taken over the African American culture. And I don't care how you look at it and how you want to perceive it to be. That's what it is. There's no one teaching the revolution in hip hop. There's no one teaching the revolution. All you're doing is talk about making money, but still submitted to the American government, which makes you a house Negro. It's no way that you can be submitted to the American government and call yourself a Field Negro. You are literally part of the house, the White House. So when you submit to the government and its laws and its principles and its perception, and you're joining the community, you are all house Negroes. While I'm in the house, ow, that's a 7. Yeah, I'm in my house, minding my business, but you're a house Negro out in the field. Boom. You out in the field playing games, but you're still a house Negro. Because you're submitted to the American government. You're submitted to the American culture that is against the African American community. The African American culture is not profitable for the most part for the African Americans. How is it profitable? If you're living a wholesome life trying to live and trying to preserve your body and not smoke and not drink and and not have promiscuous sex and not gangbang and shoot and kill and talk about killing each other, then how is it profitable? See, I represent the righteous African empire. I represent the righteous African empire. You represent the wicked African empire and don't even know it. I know you didn't know there was two. For you white people, you didn't know it was two empires, did you? I know they told you we was all one big family. How we all one big family? That's what they told you. There's a righteous African empire, now you know, and there's a wicked African empire. And you have been taught to believe that the wicked African empire is what is the African American community. It is not. It is not. All Africans do not agree. All African Americans do not agree with all this stuff that's going on in the culture, because it is set up from, in my belief, partially, maybe not all the way, but it's set up partially from the white American community to keep you in destruction. Yeah, I know you've heard this a million times, but you're not really looking at it. Now I'm showing you. Now the prophet is showing you. You, the white American, they have made you to where the culture that you have is influenced by some of them, the racist portion. And it keeps you killing. It keeps you drug dealing. It keeps you having promiscuous sex, having illegitimate babies. He keeps you doing what you're doing. And and for racist people, that's good for them because they ain't got to do nothing. I know you heard that a million times, but you didn't look at the real reality of it. It is reality. They ain't got to kill you. You killing yourself. And what keeps you doing that? The culture that keeps you hyped up killing each other. Not hyped up killing any other race but you. Okay? So that right there is where the field Negro departs. The house Negro is all about the culture, all about all of that, all about all this stuff that's going on, and they are not discerning that it is some of it is influenced by white America, which means it's deception in it. The house Negro is all about all the culture, all the things going on in the culture, and he or she is deceived to think that the African American culture is purely influenced by Africans. It's not purely influenced by Africans. Well, I mean, look at the struggle in itself. That's influenced by white America. White America is why you're in the struggle in the first place. So there you have it. In the African American experience is already influenced by white America oppression. It's influenced by white American oppression. So already the white man is a part of that. The racist white man is a part of that. And then it progresses to where now he got you in a certain situation of struggles, different struggles, which now makes you act out and lash out, right? And you struggling and killing each other. Now he takes that and box that experience and make it appeal through movies and through music. He's part of that. You think it's cool to do it and all this. You got your purpose for doing it. He has his purpose for doing it. Yeah, well, the purpose could be, I'm not the smartest man in the world, but the purpose could be to put it out there so you can continue doing it. So you can continue killing each other. I always ask people, how would you think the thug life would be without rap music? Where would the motivation come from? If there was no rap music, how motivated would people be to kill each other? How motivated, really think about it. How motivated would people be to kill each other if it was no rap and trap music and drill and all of that? Think about it. So you don't think some racist people are looking at that like, yeah, keep doing that. We like that. You don't think they think like that. So how do they see it then? When you're killing each other, you got rap music that's telling you to kill each other. How do you think the racists see it? Like, well, I think that's bad too. I don't think that's, how you think you see it? Like, well, that ain't doing nothing. he's happy, he or she is happy that you're doing that. Which means the field Negro, which preserves black lives, has to turn his back on a culture that is teaching us to kill each other. So you thought you was the field Negro, and you're not. Because you're still submitted to the American culture, the African American culture, which is tainted with white supremacy. It's still controlling you. And at the end of the day, let's call it what it is. It's influencing you to kill each other. That's profitable for white supremacy. That's profitable for white racists. And so some would say it's doing more damage than good. Let's look at it like that. And if something is doing more damage than good, it is not profitable for the field Negro. If it's doing more damage than good to his people, it's not profitable for he or she that is the field Negro. So being unsubmitted to the African American community is being the field Negro, being unsubmitted to it. While you teach those who are not submitted to it are the sellouts. No, that's not true. That's not true. Because half of the people that's not submitted to it, many of them are the righteous African empire. And the empire that you overlooked. You remember the movie Us? The righteous African empire is the girl that was locked down on the bed, handcuffed to the bed while you went back into the world. That's the wicked African empire. The righteous African empire is the empire that you handcuffed to the bed on Us, that movie Us. Yeah, the little girl, how she was handcuffed. They took a shirt and everything. That's the righteous empire. The first generations that fought for rights and fought for everything, fought and served God. You handcuffed them down in the basement while you went to live it up with the Americans. Now, white people don't know whose side to be on. You know why? Because they didn't know it was two empires. They didn't know it was two empires. It's the righteous African empire and the wicked African empire. And all they know, all they're exposed to, because they're on the outside, is the wicked African empire, because that's the empire that gets the most play. That's the empire that gets the most exposure. But if you are a white person and you really feel that you're down with the African American cause, then you should be down with the righteous African empire that's preserving African lives and African thought. Not just when you got your pants off your butt, you think you're down with the Africans. You're down with the Africans when you get to the righteous African empire, where you're preserving African lives and thought. If you're not preserving and you're part of the problem, look at it for what it is. If you're doing the killing and you're hanging with the killers and you're doing all the destruction, how are you preserving African lives? So how are you really down with African lives when you're part of the problem? That's the deception. So the field Negro is unsubmitted to the American community, American government, and the African American community as well. Yes, because it is a destructive culture. It destroys African lives. It does more damage than good to African lives. Like I said before, it shows rich people, but still captive to the American government. That's supposed to raise our kids that are African. Oh, you see good rich people, that should make you inspire. That should inspire you. That's not enough. That's not going to be enough to see rich people. Hear what I just said? That's not going to be enough to see rich people, and that's supposed to inspire the Africans. That's not enough. You got to have way more teaching, and you have to have way more complexity in your and sophistication in your teachings, and in your information, and in your understanding and awareness of where you are. You're in a country that never ceased to be against you. When did it cease to be against you? What years and times did it cease to be against you? All it did was sophisticate. Racism, all it did was sophisticate into a system. They don't call you nigga no more. They just keep you broke. That's the racist system now. I ain't gonna call you a nigga. I just keep you broke. I'll just keep you broke. That racism, poverty is the new racism. Poverty is the new racism. It enslaves you. Yeah, that's why you're in the ghetto and Mexicans are not. Explain why Mexicans come here straight from Mexico but do not go to a ghetto. Because they have American programs sponsored by the American government that takes them straight to Mexican neighborhoods that have American programs that give them monies. How can you explain all these people consistently coming from Mexico every month, but they're not going to ghettos? Then where are they going? If they have no money and no family most of the times, where are they going then? They're going to neighborhoods that have been built up by American programs. And that's why it explains why they had to separate from you, because you would have caught on to it when you saw their neighborhoods. Well, hey, where's their ghettos? All these Mexicans coming from Mexico, where's all the ghettos? No ghettos, huh? All American programs. And the white man, I believe he worked, the racist white man said, long as you just stay away from them, stay away from the Africans. We'll take care of you because you work hard and you do anything. Just stay away from them. Because we stopped doing certain jobs. So they took care of them because of their work ethic. And really their desperation. Well, you come from another country, you're gonna be desperate. It's one thing to leave another state. You might hang out on the streets and be homeless and go to the shelters and soup kitchens. You coming from another country, you're gonna be desperate. You're gonna do whatever you gotta do. If you yourselves, even being black people, if you go to Russia, you think you're gonna be on the streets? Man, you're gonna do whatever you gotta do. You're gonna be in a whole different posture. You're gonna be in a whole different posture. And that explains why their work ethic it's not only hard work, it's also desperation. And it's also not being in a foreign country. That's going to give you a heck of a work ethic. You're in another country, you're going to go hard. So that explains it. It's not just all hard work. It's also desperation in the foreign country. Yeah, any man will go work hard than you from a different country. What, you going to lay around in a different country? And it's America. You're inspired already. You coming here, oh, I'm in America. I'm inspired to do something. Until you live here 20 years, 30 years. And you see how it really is. But in the beginning, who wouldn't be inspired to come to America and work hard, and you in a foreign country on top of that? So they take advantage of that. Hear this part. They take advantage of that and capitalize on it, put them away and work them like slaves to stimulate the economy of America, keep them away from you being black people and give them American programs. But they haven't done it for you, have they? So poverty for you is racism. Because you can't explain why they're helping the Mexicans and giving them programs, and they should have been doing that for you. You can't explain why the Asians got Chinatown and they ain't got no Chinatown. You should have been the first community with a Chinatown because you was the first community really working here as slaves, and then you came out of that and you were separate. Hear this part. You were separate from the white Americans. You should have been the first. You should have been the first that was given a Chinatown. But you wasn't given a Chinatown. You wasn't given a Chinatown. You was given ghettos. They gave us ghettos. The Asians got a Chinatown, which is a portion of America, before we did. We was the one first in line being enslaved and building this country up. We should have had a Chinatown before the Asians did. They got Chinatowns, which, let me help some people understand. A Chinatown is a community out that is separate from the Americans. Chinatown is not really for America. Chinatown is really for the Chinese. It is for the Chinese. It's not for us. If you go down to Chinatown, it's for a handful of things. It's not really somewhere that like Americans go per se. But see, so You have to understand this. This is the first really established foreign community or community for people that's outside of white America, the Chinatowns. They're in every great metropolis. Now look at it for what it is. Asians got Chinatowns in every great metropolis, which have restaurants and is built up. You have ghettos. You see? You see how they perceive you and have you? You have ghettos. Asians have Chinatowns. Ain't no ghettos in Chinatown. And those Chinatowns are in Atlanta. Those Chinatowns are in Detroit. They're in Los Angeles, San Francisco, New York. Chinatown is everywhere. It's basically what Chinatown is a community for Asians in every great metropolis. Because some of y'all hear that key word, and that might be a Jedi mind trick too. You hear Chinatown, and you've heard it so many times, you don't realize what's going on, do you? Chinatown is what the American community gave the Asians. They give everybody else these opportunities. And I'm pretty sure there's American programs in Chinatown. Oh, you don't think so? There gotta be. There has to be American programs in Chinatowns all across these metropolises. How come you still haven't got something like that going? The Native Americans got reservations and casinos. No disrespect to them because they deserve it because this is their land. Everyone has programs but you. You know what programs we got for you as African Americans? I'm pretty sure you can guess it. EBT, that's your program. Boom. Your program, our programs that we get, me included, is EBT. That's the program they got for you. For Native Americans, they got reservation land. That's their programs. For Chinese, they got Chinatown. That's their programs. For Mexicans, they have Mexican neighborhoods that are not in the ghetto. That's their programs. Their program is not EBT. EBT, food stamps, is our program. And so the field Negro is not submitted to this. The field Negro sees things for what they are, is that the white racist Americans still have a vendetta because we took their dream of having an all-white America. That's why they still hate us. Because people say, well, why white people still hate black people? I'm going to tell you, I'm glad you asked. Because you ain't doing nothing to them, are you? You ain't doing nothing to them no more, are you? You never really did anything to them. So why they hate you so much? Why they still hate you generation after generation when these new generations haven't done anything to them? What have you done to them lately? What have you done to them lately? Ooh, yeah. What have you done to them lately? What have you ever done to them? What have you ever done to them? Ooh, yeah. You ain't never done nothing to them. You ain't never done nothing to them. So why they hate you so bad? Because you took their dream of an all-white America. That's what it is. Explain it any other way. After you done went through slavery, that wasn't good enough. You went through slavery, you went through brutality, discrimination, and why they still hate you? Think about it. It's because you remind them that you took their dream of an all-white America, and the greater this country get, they realize that they could have had all of this to themselves, and you make them, and it infuriates them. The more progressive this country becomes, because they realize, well, with each step, with each progression, this could have all been ours. So the hate continues. Not to mention that you're taking over the culture, but a culture that the field Negro is not a part of. They hate all of that. You don't see that. You don't see that the white Americans are being pushed out the American culture. Well, I mean, how are they cool anymore? Now let's be 100. I ain't trying to be funny. How are they cool? How do they appeal in the culture? Oh, a couple pretty white girls here and there every once in a while. Oh, a couple cool actresses and actors every once in a while. Don't you see that the Africans have taken over the culture? And this infuriates them the most. But the bad part is the wicked African empire has taken over the culture, not the righteous African empire. So it's still not profitable for the righteous African empire. Why you think it should be? Because you think, many of you in America think we are one big family and we're split into two different empires in the African American community. The righteous African American empire and the wicked African American empire. So you think we should be glad for progression, and we're not. Because it does not represent the African righteous empire. It does not represent God. And this explains why there is no Moses, although you have attempted to act like or behave like Moses is, but you are no Moses because you do not have God. You cannot be Moses without God. You can't be Moses and deliver the people without God. So all you're doing now is making analogies. All they're doing now is making parallels. How they're parallel to Moses, but they really not. So what we have here is a community that's making parallels in analogies and illustrations about delivering God's people, talking about let my people go, but you are talking about delivering Africans and saying let my people go, but you are not connected to God. They are not connected to God. So how can they be deliverers? How can they deliver us? And that explains why you're still in the ghetto, because the African does not have God. Many of us do not have God. So how are we going to deliver? Through money? Money is still submitted to the American government. Obviously, no pun intended. The money of America is submitted to the government of America. Well, you know what I mean. And that's a complex situation, but you can pretty much perceive what I'm saying. That money is going to work in favor of for the American government. You have not made your money work in favor for the African American community, because they have influenced your big shakers and money makers to not really build up the African American community. Because by the time you get out of the African American community, from being backstabbed and hated on, you don't really help like that, do you? You really start defecating on your own people, don't you? Well, that's what rap teach. Go defecate on your enemies. You know what they talking about? Other black people. They ain't talking about defecating on these white folks. Some rappers are smart enough to know the difference, and they talk about defecating on the white community, the racist white community. But for the most part, what is taught is to go defecate on the people around the way. Go defecate on your rivals, which is to defecate on other black people. And then ultimately, you just defecate on all black people. You don't really help nobody. And you got billions of dollars. And I believe if Martin Luther King Jr. had billions of dollars, he would have took all that money and became poor again and got rich again. And I know you ain't that disciplined to do that, are you? They not that disciplined to do that. You ain't disciplined enough to get $1 billion, take all of that and build up the African American community and get rich again. Now you ain't that bad, are you? You ain't that bad, are you? Get billions of dollars, build up the African American community, and get billions of dollars again. You ain't never seen nobody get billions of dollars twice, have you? Yeah, that's what Malcolm X and MLK would have did. They would have took their money that they have. Once they got that, think about it. They're going straight to building up the community. That's what they're doing. They're going straight to building up the community. That's all. They were driven to do that. And so we don't need anybody around here talking about, well, I'm king and queen. You ain't king and queen because you do not progress the community. Kings progress the community. Queens progressed the community. In England, you had queens and kings, right? What did those kings and queens do in England? Progress their surrounding community. They didn't just sit there on a pedestal saying, hey, I'm king, I'm queen. They had information and they had activity that progressed the community. So what you do in your community, you subtly, in the African American community, you give honor and salutes, and you give positions to people as kings and queens in your culture, but that are not progressing the overall community, even outside of what they do. So in other words, if you was a king and queen, you would be progressing people that don't even listen to your music. You would be progressing people that don't even like your music. If you was a king or queen, you would be progressing people that don't even watch you play any sports or that don't watch you do any acting in a movie. That's when you're progressing the community. You progress only people that are in your genre or that like your genre. That's what you progress people that are in your genre or like your genre. A real king and queen progress the whole community. Now you see what I'm saying? Whether they listen to your music or not. And you're not doing that. You're only progressing people that like hip hop. You're only progressing people that's with that. A king and queen, a real one. I ain't talking about no play one. I'm talking about a real king and queen. They progress the entire community. And I've done that through information. Y'all didn't know they had 43 states of child marriage. That's a progression. That's a revolutionary progression, by the way. And I'm going to do a video on that. That's a revolutionary progression while my enemies are trying to downgrade it and downplay it and trivialize it. That's a revolutionary change in your community. That's a revolutionary progression. And then my rivals and enemies and my critics want to sit back and say, well, none of us know everything. This ain't one of those situations where, this is where I know something and you just don't know it. And you're pointing out that, well, everybody don't know everything. No, bro. This is bigger than that kind of information. This is information that revolutionized the way you see the real image of America. It exposed the real image. It shows us who America really is. And there's no turning back. You can't change it. It's done. It's like young people say, you can't unhear that. You can't unsee this. You can't unsee it and you can't unhear it. 43 states in America has child marriage. You can't unhear that. You can't unsee that. That is a revolutionary progression that you have not given me respect for, because many people have talked about it. They have talked about articles. They have said it by articles. Yes, but they have not said that child marriage is collectively here in the form of 43 states. They haven't said that. They only talk about the issue of child marriage. They haven't said blatantly and directly 43 states has child marriage. And some will say that's my claim to fame. Right there. And I know it started out as something else, but it ended up as this. This is what it ended up to be. Me having a claim to fame, telling you about child marriage in 43 states, and you can't do nothing about it. You can say you knew halfway about it, but you ain't say nothing. And you didn't hear any messenger, hear this part, you didn't hear any messenger reveal it to you in a collective manner. Nobody told you 43 states has child marriage. Nobody told you that. So you can sit up and talk about all the articles. You can sit up and talk about hearing how you've heard people talk about it as an issue, but you have not heard any messenger talk about it collectively. And that's the difference. Because it's one thing to talk about child marriage. It's one thing to say, hey, you got 43 states, leaving out only 7 states that has child marriage. That's a whole different animal. That's a whole different animal, and you can't insult my intelligence. It's one thing to sit up and say, oh, there's child marriage in the world and in the country, and you don't really know how bad it is. I'm showing you how bad it is. I'm showing you how much of it is going on, and no one has done that like me. So whether you like me or hate me, you have to acknowledge that. And that's what makes men and women. That separates the men from the boys and the girls from the women. I don't care. I'm not asking you to like me. I'm not asking you to invite me to your brunch, to your billionaire brunch. I'm asking you to acknowledge my revolutionary progression. And that's what separates adults from children. You can sit up and say, well, what? Well, what? You know it now, but you running off like you just been knew this. Oh, let me bring you back here. Let me tell you something. The fact that you didn't know it is also going to bring a liability to your community. Well, they've been gang stalking. Let me tell you what they've been doing. They've been gang stalking, using children in gang stalking. You got to hear this part to understand why you got the liability. You have the liability because they've been gang stalking using children. They've been insinuating that people are pedophiles and sexual deviants. But yet, here's the part what makes you liable. But yet, y'all are ignorant the fact that y'all got 43 states of child marriage. Now, that's the liability. Now, you see that? That's the equation. That's your spiritual equation. I got a video on spiritual mathematics. Your spiritual equation concerning spiritual mathematics is you sit up and accuse everybody of being pedophiles. You, as a community, use children as pedophile entrapment weapons. And then that's one part of the equation. Plus, you have 43 states of child marriage. This equals a liability. Now you see what I'm saying? It isn't just because you have child marriage, it's because you went about accusing other people of being sexual with children, but here you are with child marriage. That equals, in spiritual mathematics, a liability. It's not just, and that's why I have to break it down. I need you to hear me very closely. I need you to hear me very closely. This is what creates the liability, is that you went out playing games. Yeah, because you're now saying, oh, okay, he's a good person. Look what he told us. We ain't stopping there. No, I need a bag. Oh, yeah, I know. You should have knew a black man was going to come like this. Yes, I need a bag. When somebody get locked up for something they ain't do, what do the American government do? They go get a bag, don't they? So even your American government, evil and corrupt as it is, when they lock someone up unjustly and accuse someone unjustly, they go get a bag. You don't have to ask the American government, foul and corrupt and sour as they are, you don't even have to ask them to go get a bag. They go get that bag. A sizzle. They go get the bag, a sizzle. And here you are acting like you finna do something else, like I'm finna help you. You see what you did as the American community. You thought, oh, well, we'll just utilize him and to do better our community. Man, you need to stay off of YouTube and or internet or wherever it is that got you on this cornball stuff. Like, yeah, we're gonna make him use him like he's our little hamster. Like, we're gonna use him and we're gonna save this little endangered hamster and make him someone great. I'm already great. Don't you see that? Don't you see that? Joe Biden didn't tell you nothing about this 43 states of child marriage. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it as it is. Let's talk about reality. Because I don't think you think this is reality. But let's talk about reality. Have Joe Biden told you about 43 states or changing it? Has he changed it? It's still there. So he doesn't have any plans of changing it. That's one reality. Second reality. You got Kamala Harris, who is the vice president. Yes. Kamala Harris, the vice president. Everybody know who she is. She used to be a former prosecutor in California. who used, and she told us this herself. She used to prosecute child sex assault cases in California. So she was in courts as a prosecutor, bringing justice for children that was sexually assaulted. You got that part right of her equation, her spiritual equation. She comes into the White House as a former prosecutor and does nothing about 43 states of child marriage. Now think about it. If you got a talent to play basketball, you play basketball, right? You're going to play it, right? You see a basketball court and you're a basketball player. Let's just say you went to the White House. And you can play basketball just as good as LeBron or Jordan. And they got a real court, right? You're just going to shoot around, ain't you? You're just going to shoot around because that's what you do and you got a passion. So how is it that Kamala Harris comes to the White House having a passion as a prosecutor, prosecuting child sexual assault cases, but she ain't shooting around on this child sex marriage, this child marriage? Why she ain't shooting around per se on this when she's naturally passionate about this? Just like Jordan or LeBron would naturally shoot around at the White House if there was a basketball court because it's their passion, right? Now you see what I'm going with this. It's their passion. So how come she ain't reflecting that passion of prosecuting sexual child sex assault cases by getting rid of child marriage in America in 43 states? How come she ain't saying nothing about it? How come she ain't showing that same passion that she had for prosecuting child sexual assault cases in the White House by getting rid of child marriage in 43 states in America? Why she ain't doing that? That's reality. Another reality. How come Donald Trump didn't say nothing about the last child marriage law passed under his administration? Hear me good. The last child marriage law was passed. This is real stuff, guys. This is not stuff I just looked up on the internet and just, and it's just like from some dark web or some kind of little quirky stuff that I just found out and put together and stuff in some little dirty apartment. My apartment is mostly clean. This isn't that situation. This is stuff that you can see. This is real. Donald Trump passed the last child marriage law was passed under Donald Trump's administration. Whether he passed it or not is irrelevant. You know what's relevant? The fact that he got a big mouth, talks about LeBron, talks about LeBron James, he talks about Rosie O'Donnell, but we don't hear him talk about child marriage passed under his administration. Big as his mouth is. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Big as his mouth is, he talks about everything, and you know it, and I know it. But yet we don't hear a peep out of him from the concerning the child marriage laws passed under his administration. Now you see why I'm turned up, because it's the revolution, bruh. It ain't no stopping this. And when it's done, we're going to be done with it and live in paradise. But until paradise, we're going to war. Man, how you going to let them play with your community about pedophilia? And the last child marriage law was passed a year before COVID. That's how relevant it is. Under the Trump administration. If you don't think these child marriage laws are relevant, let me put this in your ear. The last child marriage law was passed under a year before COVID. A year before COVID. The last child marriage law, we don't care what the details of it is. See, that's what the enemies and rivals and critics will say. Well, this is how it's done. We don't care how it's done. That's a Jedi mind trick. Because they'll tell you that. For people that's trying to support and trying to fight and do what I do, this is what you need to realize. You want to get equipped. When you want to do what I do, you got to be equipped. When they try to come at you with a Jedi mind trick and say, well, this is how it's done. This is how the child marriage has to be done. We don't care how it's done. We don't care if it's with parental consent. They'll say, well, it's with parental consent. That's a Jedi mind trick. We don't care how it's done. It's the fact that the American government made it an option. That's how you beat that Jedi mind trick. They can't get past that. You made it an option for an adult to marry a child. That's all we care about. That's how you sidestep the Jedi mind trick. You know they can't do no Jedi mind trick on no black man. Well, white people, you just don't know. It doesn't matter. I don't need to know the details. All I need to know is you made it an option to the American community to marry children, and that happened a year before COVID. The last option you gave the American community to marry children was a year before COVID. So it's always going to be relevant because COVID is relevant. See that? That's a 7th hour. It's going to always be relevant because COVID is always relevant. So if you tell people, oh, this child marriage law was a year before COVID, they're going to be like, really? Really? The last child marriage law came out a year before COVID? That's pretty bad. That's not good. And that is the smoking gun, guys. That's the smoking gun. And now you understand why the field Negro is unsubmitted. The field Negro cannot submit to the American culture and American community because it's filled with deception and filled with filth and filled with things that are against the African American community and the overall American community. The field Negro cannot submit to a government that does not look out for the community. The house Negro is just glad to be taken care of by the American government. Long as they feeding you, long as they doing for you, you good. That's the house Negro. The field Negro is first, the real good ones, the real ones are connected to God. We're connected to God, and it's never good enough if this is not of God. See that part there? See, that's what we leave a lot of people. Because see, you good long as you taken care of. The spiritual field Negro, I'm gonna put it like that. The spiritual field Negro is not good if it ain't going God's way. He riding with God. She riding with God. Not riding with you. Not riding with black culture, not riding with American culture. We riding with God. And you got 50 states with gay marriage. We riding with God, baby. The spiritual house Negro is not, the spiritual field Negro is not going to submit to a country that has gay marriage in 50 states, all 50 states. So if it's not enough for the field Negro concerning child marriage, it's definitely enough for him or her concerning gay marriage in 50 states that we cannot submit. Because here it is part, the black community cannot sit up and hate gay people and say that is not African and we are not like this as Africans. Okay, you know what you submitted to? Because you got those type. You got those type. And they're in the Jamaican community too. The Jamaican community, I heard, is many of them are very homophobic. This is what I've been told. But the Jamaican Americans are submitted to 50 states with gay marriage. And you can try to act like you're not a part of it subconsciously, but you have to take a stand and be 100. You can't be sitting up here talking about, I ain't really a part of it. Nah, you need to be 100. You need to ride with God and be 100 about it. You know what that means? You can no longer vote in the American government process, as far as the voting process. You can't have a part of the voting process. You can't have a part of it. Because they're all these famous and popular politicians, all of them are going to talk about progressing the gay agenda and gay marriage and all of that. They already got gay marriage in all 50 states. They ain't really got to talk about that part. But they're going to be talking about progressing the gay community, which I've explained to you all is that if we were all gay, we would not be able to reproduce. We would die off as the human race. So that's how we know it's not correct. And we have to check our mental health and ask God to help us with our mental health because it's not correct thinking. If it doesn't produce properly, how is it correct thinking then? How is it correct desires if it does not produce according to reality properly and correctly? Just no different than having sex with children. You know that's not correct properly. Because how can a man have a marriage with a child? How is a man compatible with a child? On Valentine's Day, how can a man have a marriage with a child? What, he take an envelope and put the little candies in it and say, here, baby, you my Valentine. Like we was in school, the little ones with the writing on it, you are mine and all of that. How can a man be compatible with a child? It's incorrect. You don't have to, you know it's incorrect. And if you're thinking this way, then you have to check your mental health and ask God to help you with your mental health. You cannot try to build philosophies. Well, in the older times, they were doing this and that and the third. Well, we have evolved. Go tell somebody on the block that in the older times, they were dating 13-year-old girls and try to go touch a 13-year-old girl talking about they used to do it, and you'll be killed. So basically, if you do not evolve with time, you will be killed. It's concerning these children. And talking about, what they used to do and trying to act like it's some new innovative thing, you will be killed. See, white people, white Americans, you have to understand for all other races, they have always been protected by money, so they do what they want to do. You are not protected by money. You do something crazy, and look what happens. Look what happens when they think you do something crazy. White people don't care what they do. You know why? Because as soon as you try to confront them, guess what they did in the past? They just pull out the guns, they pull out security, and you die. And then they put money on your head, and somebody go kill you where you at. So that explains why they pass these child marriage laws. They do what they want because they have no one to answer to. You are subject to the community. Black people are subject to their surrounding community. Other races, Hispanics and Latinos, are subject to their surrounding community. You have to care about what your community think. The white Americans, for the most part, they don't have to care what you think until the prophet like me comes along. And see who you focused on. You focused on me. You know why you focused on me? Because you think that I'm subject to you, because that's how it's always been. I'm not subject to you as a community. I belong to God. That's why you got suffering. That's why you got destruction. Because you thought I was subject to you. And I'm a field Negro, free from the American community, free from the African American community, free from all communities, including Hispanic and Latino. If I'm free from African Americans, I'm definitely free from you. Imagine me being free, captive to you, and you don't even know that there's an African American wicked empire and there's an African American righteous empire. You don't even have the ability to speak on our politics in a savvy way, in a fluid way. How's a Mexican going to tell me about my life and my community? How's a Puerto Rican going to tell me about my life and my community? You do not live an African experience, meaning you do not go outside and you are not perceived as specifically African. When you're perceived as a Mexican, you know what you're perceived as by white Americans and police? As a worker. As a worker. That's how they perceive you, because that's what most of your community is doing. You know what they perceive us as? Criminals, because that's what most of our community is doing. Most of our community is criminals, so we're perceived as criminals first. And it doesn't even matter how old we are. Your community, Hispanic and Latino, you're not seen as no criminals. Not all of you. We're perceived as criminals. And we're hated more than you. Oh, so you're hated more than Africans? Mexicans are hated more than Africans. Huh? You sure about that? I'm talking about with the actions. I'm not talking about just because you're from a foreign place and you more hated. You feel you're more hated because y'all foreign to everybody here in America. I'm talking about real actions of hate and discrimination. You think you're more hated than Africans? You're not. Was your ancestors more hated than Africans? They were not. They were not enslaved here, right? So I don't care if they was enslaved anywhere else. I'm talking about here and right now. It's not where you're from, it's where you're at. That's what they say. And right here where you at, your ancestors was not enslaved here. Okay, and you can make up all these little stories where some of them was in there and some of them, come on, you know what I'm talking about. Africans were mostly enslaved here in America, not no other race. So and it's just safe to say overall, we just suffer more. We suffer more discrimination at face value. So how dare you try to get in politics that of a community that's already suffering more than anybody? That's how I see it. Them other Africans, they let you be cool and they think, just because you listen to a little hip hop and smoke a little weed, you cool, you can come over here and talk a little jazz. Not me. I don't feel that way. I feel if you are not African and sharing the African American experience, at face value, they don't see you as an African looking person. If they do not see you as an African looking person, you have no reason to be in our politics. Because we suffer the most and more here than anybody. But these Americans has taught you, because you listen to rap and you got Puerto Rican rappers and you got Mexican rappers, that means you like us. No, it doesn't. It doesn't mean you like us to me. I don't care how much you rap. I'm pretty sure it's hundreds of Mexican rappers, hundreds of Puerto Rican rappers trying to get on right now as I speak. You're trying to get on right now, and I don't even care nothing about it. Because you're never going to share in the exact same experience. You're not. You're not. That's how the field Negros see it. The house Negros see it like, well, we all together in the culture and all of this. No, we not. We're not. And when you persecute an African, that's the worst thing you can do when you've already seen his oppression. You already seen her oppression here in this country. I don't care who you are. You have no business in our politics because of our oppression and slavery. Specifically, that's the reasons why you shouldn't be playing with no black people. That's why. And we don't care what you heard. You know what that's how I know it's white people and other people behind it. Because you know what? How black people feel? Because of discrimination and lies and hate and all of this that's been given from the black community. You know how we feel? All this discrimination been given to us. If you don't have evidence and you don't have a real crime, we want you to kick rocks. We're not going to play any psychological games. That's what white people do. That's what the white people doing. If you don't have a crime, if you don't have evidence of a crime, if you don't have hospital records of people being raped and molested, if you don't have that, you are going to die. We're not going to play no goofy Speedy Gonzalez games with you. You want to be Speedy Gonzalez? Go jump in a TV. Go jump in a flash screen. You want to be Speedy Gonzalez? You want to be a cartoon? If you play with us without evidence, that's how we see it. Then you should be dead. Because that's what the white Americans did to us all this time. Incriminating us with no evidence. We don't care about testimonies. People are crazy in families, outside of families. I'm aware of that. I'm aware of crazy family members. I'm aware of that. I'm not in the dark about that. What you're in the dark about is that without evidence, it means nothing. I don't care if it's coming from a mother. I don't care if it's coming from a grandmother or a grandfather. I don't care if my grandfather told you something. If you don't got evidence, you got to kick rocks. That's what we talking about. We ain't talking about no testimonies. We ain't talking about none of that. Because if we live in a Johnny Depp, Amber Heard generation where both of them was on the stand and somebody was lying. Amber Heard was right there with a straight face, in a messed up face, lying. So a testimony wasn't good enough. It's not good enough in a 2023 America. If you do not have evidence, you people are out in this country, you Mexicans, you black people, you white people in America, you are clowns. You are clowns. Because you walk around here without evidence talking about everything, bruh. And it's not good for the dope man. You know why the dope man, I don't got no real smoke with no real thugs and gangsters? Because real thugs and gangsters ain't touching nothing without evidence. Ain't no real street people touching nothing. Ain't no real street niggas touching nothing without evidence because it's against their principles. They want real evidence besides testimony. And you know what real evidence is? Let's say in the case of a family member talking about something. There was always hate. There was always something. There was always this tension. How you going to have family members talking about something happened to them and accusing somebody, but they've been with the same person the whole time? They've been living with the person the whole time, taking dumps in the same toilet. And then they wait years later when they fall off and become losers. And then they want to take stuff that happened in their childhood and utilize it and tell half-truths and whole lies because they are losers in their life. And now they fell on hard times. And now they want somebody to blame for why they're a loser. Yeah, you need to check that in American culture, where some people start talking about sexual abuse. And the reason why they're talking about it, because they don't fell off. Now they want somebody to blame for why they're a loser. Boom. That's a 7 hour. Yeah, you ain't think about that, coppers. All the police, you ain't think about that, did you? Where people start using things and utilizing things in their past concerning sexual abuse, women too. Look how long they wait. And you know what your excuse for that is? Well, it takes a little while for sexual victims. This is what these psychologists, these caring psychologists say. I don't let them deceive me. Because see, what you ain't realize is you being one-track minded. Oh, so that's the reason for everybody doing it? Waiting all that time. That's what you have me to believe, that everybody in a cookie cutter fashion is waiting to tell sexual abuse cases because they were scared to come forward. And all these famous people getting all these people coming out the woodworks on them all of a sudden when they got money. You didn't come when in the beginning of my career and a little bit after something happened to you. Well, why you didn't come when something happened to you? Or you were scared of powerful people? Well, what's the difference now then? What's the difference now? They still can get you the same way. I mean, really. All of that, a lot of that, I'm not saying all of it, but half of that is people falling off. Hear this part. People falling off, going broke and falling off, and then sitting back in a dark room thinking about stuff that happened to them and seeing how they can come up. Boom. That's a 7 hour. Sitting back in a dark room, losers, looking at something that happened to them, but it really wasn't the real interpretation of how it happened. They got to add little adjectives and all of this stuff, right? And present this case to the police and the community so they can come up. Yeah, you didn't think about that, did you? That half of these testimonies that people talking about is testimonies of losers who fell off. Look at their life. It ain't successful, is it? They ain't got no money, do they? So guess what? That means they fell off. They fell off, and then when they fell off, like my brother, then when he fell off, now everybody's to blame for why he is the way he is. And in actuality, he was a loser trying to be a thug, and he lost his mind. Oh, you don't know people could lose their mind? Well, part of the thug life, for white Americans that don't know, is high levels of paranoia. Extreme levels. Well, you don't know if somebody gonna kick in your door. You smoking weed all the time. And real criminals have felt that way. You smoking weed, you just looking at your door like, dang, man, somebody might, you know what I'm saying? You looking at your whole house differently. Cause somebody can kind of kick it in or something. You looking at your back door a little differently. And see, if you ain't able to handle that, and you ain't able to ride there like a horse, you'll lose your mind before you leave your 30s in that thug life. And yet white Americans ain't telling you that. These psychologists, these caring psychologists don't know nothing about the psychology of thug life. That's a 7 hour. They don't know nothing about that psychology of thug life where you can lose your mind. When you can think everybody's against you when you ain't even selling no drugs. See, that's what my brother was doing. Ain't selling no weight, ain't selling no big drugs, quantities of drugs, but he think he a Gambino like everybody's after him. Because the thug, he began to emulate and meditate and live and live out mentally a lifestyle that he was not living. So there was no enemies to defeat. That's a 7 hour. So guess what that did? It kept the paranoia going. Well, in the real thug life, you can go ahead and handle that and it's over with. But if you think you a thug, it never ends because you never find the enemies to shoot. Make sense? So they remain paranoid forever. That's a 7 hour. You don't see me paranoid, do you? Hey, I'm up here talking about the government and everything. How I'm paranoid. Paranoid people don't do that. Yeah, I'm on another level. So see, that's what you got going on. And my brother's a perfect example. He's a house Negro. I'm a field Negro. I grew up selling crack cocaine. When I was 16 years old, shooting guns, breaking the houses, stealing guns, keeping guns and stealing guns and everything. I went through that. My brother, he didn't do no real crimes till he was in his 20s or something. I ain't talking about that little stuff you get caught up and running around, people running around you, ready to shoot you and all that. I'm talking about breaking in houses, selling crack cocaine. He wasn't selling no crack cocaine, man. In fact, when I had a gun and I was about to shoot somebody, he was the one that stopped me from doing it. He was a soft-hearted little kid, little boy. I was tough as a kid. I got caught with brass knuckles when I was in elementary. I fought through middle school. I got kicked out of high school for pulling a weapon on somebody. And I never went back for that very reason. Not because I failed, not because of some other stuff. I didn't go back to high school because of a weapon. That's the difference between me and him. I'm a field Negro. He's a house Negro. I can show you all throughout my history. Got robbed 2 times. He didn't. He was standing there 2 times when I got robbed. Both times I ever got robbed in my life, my brother was present. Okay? One time I got robbed at gunpoint. One time I got robbed with a blade from these Mexicans. The first time I got robbed, I was like 15, 16 years old. I got robbed by 2 crack smoking Mexicans. Okay, the second time was a black dude at gunpoint when I was coming from the weed house. So that's the difference between me and him. And I don't know. When you start out tough, you end tough. I started out tough. I went to juvenile detention centers when I was a kid. When I was 15 years old, I had a big old fro going to the detention center. I had to put the lice shampoo in your hair. Make sure you ain't got no lice. You have to listen to these stories of people talking and stuff. Sitting in a cell, sitting in a detention center, juvenile detention center cell. See, when kids start out like that, that's the real thugs. All these late bloomers, you start thugging in your 20s. I don't even consider you a real thug. A real thug starts out kids. That's what starts it. All being a kid, and then from being a kid, you get this infatuation with it, and you're passionate about it, and everything before you can learn about everything else in life, and it just pull you into the thug life. That's how real thugs start. You start getting a rap from your family and the community for being a bad person as a child, not as a grown-ass man. As a child, you start being perceived as a bad boy. And those kids grow up and don't care about how the society see them. I don't care about how you see me. My family and community see me as a bad person when I was a kid. You think that didn't groom me to deal with what you're doing now? Because I've been perceived as a bad kid or a bad man. And then, so by the time you came along, I got tough skin. That don't bother me. I don't care if they see me as a bad person. When I was a kid, going through stuff, sleeping with a gun under my mattress, that's the difference. Now everybody want to be thugs, but y'all late bloomers. You know who I believe are real thugs? the ones that start out as kids or they have thugs in their family and they start hustling for their family. Those are the real thugs. The ones who's running dope for their family. Yeah, the ones who's selling drugs because their mama sold drugs. The ones who sell drugs because their daddy was selling drugs. Those are the real thugs. Okay, and the ones that started out getting in trouble as a kid. That's always and I don't care about, because no one sells the same amount of dope and drugs. That's the thing about it. Jay-Z didn't sell the same amount of drugs as 50 Cent, right? Two different gangsters. I'm sure they didn't sell the same amount of drugs, right? Meaning 50 Cent didn't sell the exact amount of drugs that 50 Cent sold. Jay-Z sold. They didn't sell the exact amount of drugs. Somebody sold more. And it probably was 50 Cent. But the bottom line is you respect a gangster no matter how much drugs or less of drugs they sold. We don't all do the same amount of crimes, but you respect the gangster. Right or wrong? Okay, so, because you got some people that will sit up and say, well, how much did you sell? It don't matter how much I sold. None of us sell the same amount of drugs. None of us pop the same amount of guns. None of us have had the same amount of guns. I don't have to have 1 million guns to be a person that will shoot you. I got to have a 12 gauge, SKS, a bazooka to shoot you? Do I have to own all those things? I do not, do I? So you have to go by the mentality. That's what I'm saying. But your American pop culture got you trying to say, well, how much of it did you do? You don't need to worry about that in a black neighborhood where it's poverty. They probably didn't do too much. There's a lot of poverty. But you gotta realize the mentality. That's why, we're influenced by white culture, because white culture now says, well, if you ain't got no money, you ain't nothing. White culture been making us feel like that. That's why I told you poverty is racism. You don't see Mexicans in the ghettos. They ain't got no big ghettos. You don't see the Chinese in the ghettos. You don't see nobody but black people in the ghetto. Then racism is the ghetto. Okay, you can talk about the Puerto Rican neighborhoods, but let's talk about all over the country. There is nobody that have ghettos substantially like the black people do. They're not, no, they don't. That's another thing that we can definitely agree on. Who has more ghettos? What ethnicity has the most ghettos? Black people, right? That's a fact. Okay, so how do they have the most ghettos and they was slaves and they've been fighting and civil rights and all of that? How they still got the most ghettos when they did the most labor? You know why? Because the American government never became just enough and correct enough in their minds to see that they the ones that suffered the most and labored the most. Which means you don't have to wait 1 million years to figure this out. You give it today. You don't have to wait till they do something else 1 million years. You give it now. Because in other words, they don't have to earn anything else off the strength of the slavery in the discrimination and all in the ongoing struggle of racism. They don't have to earn nothing else. That's why I told y'all EBT is karma. Our families work for free. Slaves work for free. Why shouldn't we have free money? Why shouldn't we have free money? That's karma. And you know what white folks will say? Oh, well, they getting free money. Well, our ancestors work for free. You don't think that's karma? That's karma. It came anyway because our ancestors work for free. They work for free. That's what I'm saying. And so now you got free money. Yes, we should be getting that. I am an ancestor. I am a descendant of slavery. My grandmother told me the real story that the slave master raped my grandmother. That's why vengeance is coming harder than ever concerning my bloodline. I can't speak for your bloodline. Okay? The slave master raped my grandmother. That explains why I have European on both sides of my family. Imagine that. When you got the slave master blood in your veins, you got to live with that. He's in your bloodline. But through the Christ, I'm able to flip it around and use it. I'm able to fight him and fight my bloodline, my European slave master bloodline. I'm able to fight it. So in other words, I became the nemesis. My bloodline became the nemesis. But my grandmother told me real stories. She was born in 1917. So just so you know. So this wasn't someone born recently and you saying, well, how did they really know? Somebody born in 1917 do know. They do know. They know the real story. And the slave master raped my grandmother. Raped one of my grandmothers. And so for you who don't, or people that don't even know their history, because you see, some of y'all, all of y'all ain't even descendants of slavery. Oprah Winfrey is not a descendant of slavery. She told us this on international TV. Go look it up. Go look it up. Go look it up. Oprah Winfrey is not a descendant of slavery. Her family came over here as immigrants. That's what that means. So while you think every African American is also, this is for all other ethnicities, you think all of us are descendants of slavery, that's not true. That is absolutely not true. I come from North Carolina. They have plantations in my city that people can see as a museum. Chicago don't got no plantation in their city. There is no, from my understanding, I haven't heard of it. Los Angeles don't have no plantation, obviously not. Charlotte has a plantation in the city limits of Charlotte. And they think they blacker than me. Well, you ain't blacker than the man that tell you there's a plantation in his city. I don't think you got him beat, buddy. I don't think you got him beat. I don't care what you learn. I don't care what you put on. I don't care how long you grow your dreads. I don't think you got that man beat right there, buddy. A plantation in his city? In the city limits of where he was born and grew up? No, I don't think you got him beat for being black, buddy. No, that's real. That's real. That's real. You need to hang that up. Okay? And so this is what y'all guys got to understand. These are the real issues. And this is why I have been attacked the way I have been attacked. Because I am a field Negro, free from all of this. And so for them to build a case, and now you see where we at. For you to play with me as a Mexican or Puerto Rican is blasphemous. It's blasphemous. It's blasphemous. I don't care how much of a thug you are. I don't care how much liquor you drink, how much weed you got, how much guns you shoot. It's blasphemous. And that's all I gotta say. It's blasphemous. And God is bringing judgment. And he's bringing judgment. And that's what it is. And I'm remaining who I am. I'm remaining pure. I ain't gonna violate. I don't have to violate. Because God gonna handle it. I don't have to violate nobody. I don't have to go out here violating anybody. I'm gonna let God handle all of it. And I'm gonna let him handle it his way. So this is what you have. That's what you got to understand. Is the difference between me handling it, how I'm choosing to handle it, and how God is going to handle it. Because when God handle it, when he handle it, he's going to show everybody everything. He's going to show you the difference. This is why this is happening. Because now you're being judged by God. Now the judgment is coming from God. That's the difference between me handling it a certain way and now everything coming out. The black community, all the stuff in the white community, all the stuff in the Mexican, Hispanic and Latino community, all of it's coming out because God is handling it. And then he is having me to be respected as a man. Because see, the problem is y'all have me looking like a child out here. Like I'm subject to your beatings. I'm subject to your whippings. I'm not subject to your whippings. I'm not subject to your ridicule and criticism. See, I'm gonna do a video on this. The African American community, because of extreme sins of killing each other, you cannot be judged. You cannot be judged. There's too much evil that you've done. There's too much wickedness that you've done. You cannot be judged. That's what I'm saying. You can't be judged. You can't be judged because it's too much extreme wickedness that contradicts someone who is able to judge things properly. You can't be judged. How are you going to be judged as a community with all of this going on? I mean, be 100. You know what my reason is for being a judge? It's because I'm spiritual. The Bible says those who are spiritual shall judge, and hear this part, shall not be judged of anyone. The man that is spiritual will not be judged of anyone, yet he judge all things. The Bible says the spiritual judgeth, yet he is judged of no man. He is judged of no man. And so that's the difference. Why I am able to judge and your community is not. You'll say, who am I to judge? Well, the Bible says the spiritual shall judge. Now hear this part. Does that mean the spiritual is perfect? Does that mean the spiritual is perfect? No, but the judging is do you ask a judge at court, is she perfect? Do you ask a judge in court, is he perfect to be able to judge your crime and judge what you've done? Do you ask him, is he perfect or she's perfect? You do not, do you? You know what you ask them? You know what the community expects? Them to be able to properly discern what is right and wrong. You hear that part? That's what makes a judge. And I got to do a video on this too. What makes a judge is someone who is able to discern properly and correctly what is right and what is wrong, what is just and what is unjust, what is correct and what is incorrect. That's what makes a judge, not a perfect track record, not a perfect human being. There are no perfect human beings, and God knows this. So it's obviously not the perfection of a human being. So what makes a perfect human, what makes a judge? A judge is someone who is able to properly discern precisely between good and bad, good and evil, right and wrong, correct and incorrect. And if you are a judge, this is what you should be doing. So that explains why the spiritual, hear this part, that explains why the spiritual is able to able to judge all things, yet he's judged of no man, just like a judge in the courthouse is judged of no man, unless they're doing something corrupt. I'm able to judge as a spiritual person because I'm just able to see it for what it is. That's a 7 Al. A judge is just able to see it for what it is. I'm not perfect, but I'm able to see things for what it is, which explains the scripture, the spiritual shall judge. Yes, he's judged of no man. Because he already see things for what they is and for what they are, and he's already got it in his life in a certain position. So how can you judge him when he's in the proper position? And that position, if he's not going to be perfect in, but he's covered under the blood of Jesus Christ, and the God's mercy is on him. So anytime anything comes that you think is questionable, the blood of Jesus washes it away. So there is no judgment. You're not able to do that. Your sins are ever before you if you do not receive Jesus Christ. So the spiritual, the Bible says, shall judge all things, yet he is judged of no man. And why? Because first of all, he has Jesus Christ in his life. You can't judge him. And that's where you got to be careful. Okay. If he ain't doing no crimes and you playing around him, you in trouble. Now, if you got a crime, then he has to do what every man does. And let that be a lesson to you Christians who run around here playing games. If you do a crime, you're going to jail. If you gang stalking me or trying to play these games of discernment, you're going to get spiritually prosecuted if you are in the wrong position. See, this is what Christians, because I know you Americans, I know how y'all work. Y'all want to go get the Christians. Well, we'll see what the Christians think. Well, first of all, let me tell you this before you go get the Christians. The Christians are not educated on 44 states with child marriage. Let's first understand that. They're just as ignorant as you. And the Bible says, here in America they are, the Bible says God's people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. So that means even by the Bible, coming from the Bible, God's people are destroyed because they don't have knowledge. That's the Bible says that. So God's people can be destroyed when they don't know something. And guess what these Christians here in America don't know? That their American government is passing child marriage laws, and they want to sit up here and come and judge somebody else in situations for what it is. Now you see how we come full circle? How can they judge it? How can they be spiritual? Huh? They can't, can they? So they can't properly judge it. And you know why? Because they're not really spiritual. When you're spiritual, God, the Bible says the Holy Ghost shall lead you into all truth. See, this is part of being a spiritual judge. The Holy Ghost is going to lead you into all truth. The Bible says the Holy Ghost shall lead you into all truth. So as I'm led into all truth, I can properly judge. This explains why these Christians here cannot judge properly, because they are not led by the Holy Ghost to lead them into all truth in matters. So what they do, they go by the technical PC, politically correct Christianity. Well, he's doing this and doing that, and he's doing this and doing that. You know how I know somebody's a real man of God or a woman of God? They got a lot of darkness in their past. And a lot of people don't want to hear it like that. But they have a lot of darkness, and it could be different types of darkness because Satan came after them at a young age. See, Americans have not taught about the grooming of the satanic kingdom and the attacks of the satanic kingdom when you're young. The satanic kingdom come after you at a young age. So if the devil came after you at a young age, that's how, and you got all this funny stuff